Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the workshop. Fabulous to have you here. Today is part 3 on working on our 500,000 or million layer Damascus, depending on how it is that you want to look at it. It's fantastic to have you here. I hope you enjoy joining us today. Dokily. So a katana is a rather large sword. It is not a small sword. It will be the largest sword I have ever made. And right now, a little issue there. We are indeed a pretty decent fair ways away from the length that we need this to be. So indeed, we still need a pretty decent amount more length, and right about now it's 9 millimeters thick, which is quite a ways thicker than it needs to be, but I can't go too thin. So I'm gonna take about 1 millimeter or 2 of the thickness before it is indeed that we start forging the profile of the blade, forging the bevels, forging the tangs and stuff like that. Just get a little closer. Of course, forging the bevels is indeed going to give us a little bit more length, mostly curvature in the blade, as is forging down the tang going to get us some more length too, but we want to get a little closer. Now, I've mentioned a time or two that I'm absolutely terrified about this project. And I'm absolutely terrified as to how this project's gonna go. And I have no clue what I'm doing as I build a katana. I really know, nothing about it. And I'm very worried. This is a long blade. This needs to be straight. It needs to be neatly ground. This is a big challenge, and challenges are difficult. And I know for sure, once all is said and done, I'm going to be really pleased. Or at least once it's all successfully said and done, I'm going to be very pleased that I undertook the challenge. For goodness gracious, I just feel so incredibly aware about how little I know about this. Dokily, that is a lot better. Well, I guess there's no time like the present to start profiling this. Time to take the chisel, cut the taper in for the tip, and then we're going to start forging the bevel on the blade. Woo! That's dangerous. Don't do that, kids. blade beveling is indeed actually going rather well. I'm actually very excited with how this is going, and I thought I'd take the opportunity to answer some more questions. Lots of you guys have been asking, where is Sam? Well, Sam is making a lot of his own videos, and I'll drop a link in the description below so you can go and check them out. So yeah, I will keep beveling this, and as I'm doing just a little bit at a time. So all of this is finished as we go, aside from doing final refinement. The final tweaking will be done at the end, but the rough forging of the bevel, and holy moly, the process of forging the bevel is getting this beautiful slow curve in there. That is exciting. It is time to continue working down the whole rest of the piece, and I think we are getting a nice amount of extra length there as we go too, which is fantastic. Something I really battle with is when I undertake a project like this that I'm absolutely terrified by. It is stunningly difficult to get started. You're thinking about it, you're humming, you're hawing. It is so difficult to just get stuck in and start going and trust that you have the skills to take you through. Well, I'm probably going to bite myself for saying it tomorrow when I continue grinding on this, but I am stunningly thrilled with how well this forging has gone. Even before the final tweaking, the blade has a decent amount of the curve that we want in it, and it's looking pretty awesome. I'm thrilled with how clean I was able to forge the bevel. I'm very impressed with myself for that. And I tell you what, I thought I would be terrified while forging the blade. I had a ball doing it. It was a total blast. And now it is on to forging the tang of the katana. And of course, I'm still terrified about that, despite the fact that if all goes well, it'll be just fantastic, and it itself will be a total ball and a blast. Right, that's a 30-inch blade. That is the longest blade that I've ever made. I've done 3 normalizing cycles on it. I think you probably only saw one on camera. Here is my forge. That is a 14-inch forge, and here is my bucket of quenching oil, for those of you that are curious. 30 inches high. The oil doesn't go to the top of the bucket, and there's no way that I can get that in there deep enough without snapping off a tip. So indeed, ladies and gentlemen, we have an issue, and it's an opportunity to solve said issue. What's the first issue? Well, my forge is not a very long forge, which is fantastic, and you don't need a long forge for making the sword itself. Because when I'm hand hammering the sword, I'm working just teeny weeny little bits at a time. And since I don't have a heat treating furnace, I always rely on my forge, or sometimes an oxypropane torch to harden things. Now, I've gotten away with the forge in the past by painting the heat. What is painting the heat? It is working your piece backwards and forwards across the heat to get a longer heat than your forge can cope with. Painting the heat works pretty well. It does not work very well when your sword is over twice the length of the forge. So what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to build our own forge. A forge that is capable of heating longer lengths. And this is how we're gonna do it. This is a piece of channel section. Here is a piece of tube. And we're gonna have the piece of tube inside the channel channel section. We're going to be forcing air into the tube. We're going to have a multitude of holes inside the tube, and we're going to be going old school, or we're going to be using coke to harden this blade. So this piece is obviously a little bit too short, as you can see. And so we fixed it. And now we have a long piece of steel, and we're going to go into the mill, and we're going to drill some relatively large holes across the entire length, so that when we fill up the entire thing with charcoal, coke, when we fill up the entire thing with coke, indeed, we will have a heat that goes the entire length. Of course, we're going to need some material down there, just kind of to make sure that we don't melt that pipe. Luckily, up here I have some spare refractory material. Better be recording, because if this fails, I could get on Fail Army and make $150. And I think I'll have just about enough time for this to dry most of the way, for us to indeed be able to mix up some refractory and throw it in there. Righty-ho, so that'll dry overnight. And now our sword is cool, and so we're going to do some grinding. So this is now, I have a lot of work to do on that. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the forge there. So what is the idea? Now, something like this would work a lot better if I had a little bit of a wider pan there, so that when we mound our coke up. Now, what is coke? You might not know. Coke is a refined form of coal. So they take coal, they put it in an oven, so to speak. The sulfur burns off. You end up with a very, very clean, almost pure carbon material that is coke. They use that in actual manufacturing process of steel, and lots of people use that as their fuel for the forge. And so tomorrow morning, Jamie is going to, thank you, Jamie. Jamie is going to pick some up from the Coke merchant. So with the 225 kilo bags of Coke, we should have plenty enough fuel tomorrow to now take this little makeshift forge. Now, to any of you that have used my online school at beginblacksmithing.com, which I always forget to talk about, but there's always a link in the description below where you can go to the online school. You'll be a little bit familiar with forging in the dirt. Now, because you will have seen me instruct on how to make the most basic of forge, which is indeed a hole in the dirt with fire bricks and a pipe and a hairdryer. Here, we're not going to use a hairdryer, we're going to use a blower, but the same principle applies. We're putting air into a coke fire. Could be a charcoal fire, could be a coal fire. That oxygen helps it get nice and hot, and so here we should have a nice long bed of hot coals through which to gently and gradually heat this up tomorrow. And then, of course, once that's heated up, it's going to be time to go into the quench, and hopefully I'm going to be able to sort something out for that. Obviously, because we got an issue right there. That is just too close for comfort. So we're going to make up something else to do that, and I'm looking forward to seeing you tomorrow on the next episode. What's that going to be, part 4?
Yes.
Part 4 of making our Damascus steel katana. It is, oh my goodness, holding this thing makes you feel powerful, makes you feel like you can cut stuff. So hit subscribe, hit like, share the video with your friends. Follow me on Instagram at Alex Steele, and I will see you tomorrow on the next episode.